It's a secret. Hi, welcome to our show today. I'm so excited to have a special guest and his mom today. So today we have an 11th grader or a junior in high school. His name is Tyler Barnes, and we had his mom on last week talking about how she advocated for him to get the right curriculum so he could be learning how to read and write and graduate from high school with honors. So I'm going to have Tyler come on with his mom, and they're going to share their story with you. You're all excited to hear from a high school student, as I am as well. So come on, Tyler and Becky, welcome.
Hey.
Howdy.
Hi. So Tyler, you have a very special mom who's worked really hard to get the help you need. Do you want to share what it feels like transitioning from struggling when you didn't have the help versus when you finally got the help? How hard was it for you to learn new ways to do things?
It was really hard. I had to stop what I thought worked, but what really was causing more trouble in the long run. And I had to relearn how to read, relearn how to write from the bottom up. And I'm very glad that I did, because now I can do it consistently.
From the bottom up. So at what grade did you have to do that?
I believe that was 6th grade.
Okay. Isn't that amazing? So how'd you feel about all those first 5 years? Was it frustrating?
It was frustrating. I remember I couldn't think of any ideas for art, for writing. I remember the first few years I had a really hard time reading, and then I started just labeling words. And by that I mean treating words kind of like pictures and just going, oh, that set of letters has this word attached to it, etc.
Was that a strategy that you came up with to figure out how to read before the formal help came? Isn't that something?
It was something I did so that I could read better before I got formal help.
And you just worked really extra hard. And we know that you're a bright student. So what's in your heart that you want to share with the audience listening for people who have high school kids who are struggling still?
Don't give up. Make sure that you teach your kid phonics. It helps a lot. It may seem minor, but it helps more than you could think. Imagine.
You know, it's interesting. I worked in a private school one time. I was their educational therapist. And when I assessed 8th graders and I assessed 2nd graders, they all had the same phonemic awareness challenge. So I don't want the high schoolers to think that they're dumb or stupid, because they're not. It's just there's a starting place. There's a starting place when you learn to work out or you learn to run a marathon. It's a starting point. And I just want to encourage other high schoolers to learn phonics, even if you're in high school. There's a starting point. So don't feel bad.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just get it done, right?
Yeah, there's nothing to be ashamed of having to start from the bottom up. Everyone starts from the bottom. It doesn't matter if you have to start late. You just need to start.
And I think one thing that I can say, when we started, we literally started at kindergarten level redoing, and we were like, we'll figure out where you're at, because things were all over the place. And we've used Orton Gillingham methods. We worked with people, the science of reading, but when you do the science of reading, it also encompasses writing. And Tyler's one of those kids that qualifies probably as stealth dyslexic, because when he was testing, he was doing map testing in the 99th percentile, and his comprehension was good. But when you asked him to orally read it or see something he hadn't read before, he couldn't do it, and he couldn't tell you sounds. But no one cared, because he was scoring well. Mm-hmm. And then between 5th and 6th grade, we got his end of grade testing, which is South Carolina Ready, and his vocabulary bottomed out. And when we did an independent test, all of a sudden you see this drop coming out. It's like the bottom fell out when he was required to do more than the basic, like 1,000 words. And his writing had shown problems and fluency problems way before that. But when we addressed it with the school, we were told specifically that grammar, punctuation, and spelling doesn't matter as much as creativity and imagination.
Isn't that something?
And I mean, right? And
Yeah, and let me just say, since getting out of the school system, that is not true. That is not true. That is not true for college, especially. Creativity and all that won't help you when you need to write 1,000-word paragraph or 5,000-word paragraph.
yeah, when you write your research paper, did creativity and imagination help you?
No, what helped me was structuring out my ideas, setting them all up, and then putting down points, and then adding points to those points, and then making it so that they all fit together, and then citing my sources.
So basically, structured, sequential, systematic, explicit, which you, as you know, you can't address the reading issues without addressing the writing issues because they go hand in hand. So he actually spells better than I do because he had Orton Gillingham based instruction from the get-go. And I had phonics in school, but I did not have the rules that he was taught. And I had Latin in school, but like he understands morphology. He's taken Latin and grammar.
Where things come from.
We followed the reading science, the science of reading, where you do phonemic awareness and decoding and all the things that come with it. And anyone that's done Orton Gillingham knows that, or anyone that's done science of reading based programs, you can't take them apart. You can't just focus on reading without doing writing. And that's, I think, what he's found.
I find Orton Gillingham is so intense, even with 200 hours of practicum hours. We never got into the deep writing. We never got into that. We got into teaching the phonemic awareness, how to do the drills, and how to teach all the sounds, because there's so many sounds kids have to learn. And with my reading program, I think, my writing actually comes with the workbooks. I have phonemic, I have first through fourth grade workbook, like a, workbook, disposable or consumable. And then I have two workbooks for fifth grade and above that are consumables. And those go through a lot of the writing strategies, but still it's not write a paragraph, write 2 paragraphs. It's not that kind of writing instruction. So where did you get that writing instruction? So you're set with the college, right, Tyler? Because your mom was bragging all about the tests you were taking and how high you scored and where you got admitted. So tell us about that, and where did you get some extra writing support?
I got some extra writing support from a website, I believe, called Time for Learning.
Time for Learning, and then Write Shop
then Write Shop.
Okay.
Time for Learning taught me to put my writing into blocks, like opening, point, end, opening points, midpoints, ending points.
Yeah.
And there's essentials in writing we did. And essentials in writing basically was like, talk about, it was different. It was list 5 animals, choose an animal, list 5 verbs that the animal can do, choose the verb. And literally it shapes, Project Read does something similar, where it's like, now put in the square the noun, put in the circle the verb, put in the rectangle what they're doing. And literally they had them building out sentences. This is a pronoun. Now add to that sentence. And it sounds crazy, but it was like blocks. Just it was done the same way we teach reading, except it was done with words. And you had what? Blocks, like diamonds.
Blocks. We had what else? Animals. There were actions. There were buildings.
Yeah, and so like he would have to list out, and so it would be like, identify this. You would do brainstorming, and then they would have in the square is the noun. Put the noun you choose. So and we did also something that is from when the Mad Libs. Mad Libs. It's crazy. Mad Libs are easy to do, but because it's harder for him to understand the parts of speech and how it works, we would do Mad Libs
All
like
right.
on travel. And so he started to learn nouns, verbs, adjectives, what made sense, and they're funny. But then that translated into knowing how to do the sentences. And then the phonemic awareness and the decoding actually is why he spells really well, because he
Well,
learned the rules.
I'm trying to see how he fit it all in, because a typical day of tutoring on Zoom, if a kid does 3 days, that's amazing, because there's such another demand on their schedule. So 2 to 3 days is teaching the phonemic awareness. And it looks like you're doing like the writing supplements on your own on those other days and on weekends, right?
Yes. It's less like tutoring, and we made it a whole class.
Uh-huh.
That's how I would put it. We had a class for phonics so that I could fully get those down and fully understand those. And then we had a full class for how to write, how to sentence structure, how to do paragraphs, how to do essays.
We even
Well,
had a full class on the rules of things. There was a whole time when using multisyllable words. We spent a whole semester on using multisyllable words, what phonemic sounds go based on what rules.
but is this you, Becky, or is this the instruction he was getting?
So some of it is the instruction I took. So we did multiple things. I took instruction. I've got, of course, a step-by-step dyslexia, but logic of English. I did. I used a person by the name of Upstate Pediatric Speech, Dr. Shana Williamson, who takes Medicaid. And my other son who has autism went to them, and she does neurobiofeedback. And Tyler went to her for 18 months where she did neurobiofeedback and gave explicit instruction for his auditory processing disorder and for his writing.
Okay.
He has a service plan through the Clover School District here in South Carolina, where he gets 30 minutes a week, and Miss Mallon's his speech teacher, and he's in his 5th year, I believe, 5th year,
Yeah.
4th or 5th year with them.
I know
So
30 minutes a week isn't much, but with everything else he's doing,
right.
squeeze it
So
in, right?
I mean, he's homeschooled, and part of the reason he's homeschooled is because he's twice exceptional, which means he's gifted. It's really hard for people to wrap around their brain how you can have a child that can understand and explain to adults in very simple terms like the Constitution or economics, or even algebraic theories, because he plays Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer. So he can explain algebra to you in gaming terms.
Amazing. That's amazing.
And he does really good at it. But if you ask him to do the formula on paper, it's like, I don't know. And they're like, but it's the same thing. They don't understand how learning disabilities work. So the assumption is he's lazy, he's lying, or he's just not really that smart.
Okay. You know, one of the women, I was looking for her, well, her name, because I haven't spoken to her for a little bit, but Maria Davis Perkins is a member of the International Dyslexia Association here in California. We're in the Tri-County branch, and she teaches writing strategies. And I know she's always sending information to people through the umbrella, under the umbrella of International Dyslexia Association, to help with workshops, to help with writing. But Becky, what you've done to help Tyler is really a lot. I don't know if parents have the time to do all that you've done. So we want to encourage parents.
We got to be realistic. My husband's a computer programmer. I cashed out my 401k. I started a business, and we sold our house so that I could provide individualized instruction that was needed. And by the time my child was tested, we went from, he was in the high, he dropped down, and we brought him back up. He's got a 4.0 at college with auditory processing disorder, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. He's got all the specific learning disabilities, and ADHD, and his ADHD is really bad. He doesn't take medication. He can't. There's a genetic reason. None of us in the family can take the typical ADHD meds, so that doesn't work for us. So we pulled him out, and I looked for means because I wasn't going to let my kids fail. But not everyone can do that. I'm 100% on board with that. People can't do that. I don't know very many people that can drop everything, move to a smaller house, and dedicate their lives to, I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to make sure my kids have what they need. What I would say is that a lot of what it was is I searched out resources, and I was willing to drive 2 hours and 3 hours for occupational therapists to do that. We've seen people for auditory processing disorder. We've tried programs, the ADHD. We did neurobiofeedback. Neurobiofeedback was a game changer. But most people, that's going to be $100 a pop. So realistically, what I did was go through and try to find programs that would be easy for professionals to learn, and ways to do it after a certain point, to see were there ways that could be done that teachers could do it inexpensively, to address these issues and get skill sets so that they could find ways to do it. What I've done is put together private services for him, and we went from a child that was having problems and was getting by on accommodations, but still with the accommodations was on the brink of a big crash, to a kid that's got a 4.0 his first semester at college part-time, and has a 4.91 going into that semester with significant hearing issue. I mean, his auditory processing is such that if there's background noise, it's basically like he's deaf.
It depends on the volume of the background noise, if it's equal to or louder than whoever's talking. I kind of blank on whatever they're saying.
So you know, in Latin, he's doing great. I would say I mean, it took him 6 weeks to write his research paper for school, but he did a good job on it, and he worked hard on it. And I think that's one thing that I think has been a game changer that anyone can do is Tyler uses tools. And I think that's something that really, he can talk about that, but he doesn't handwrite, he uses tools. And as a high school student and as a college student, that's the game changer for him. Realistically, I got to tell you, it's not that he can't read and do the stuff, but he is not ashamed to say, I have dyslexia and I have to do.
Well,
a few examples of that would be I frequently type, as it's just easier. I have poor handwriting personally, so I type. It's also easier to get words down when they're placed on the keyboard already, or letters and which letter's which, because it's just this letter is this one, this letter is this one. You don't have to remember which letter is which.
Grammarly.
Grammarly. It helps. It is an app that helps with punctuation and spelling. It also helps with, well, a lot of punctuation when you're doing making a sentence too wordy. When you're not adding enough, or when your phrasing is weird.
Do you also do speech to text?
I do text to speech sometimes. Or speech to text,
And he does the Otter app. So instead of taking notes when he's in class or something, he has something called the Otter app he runs.
It basically,
to text. He talks and it writes.
No, it's better than that even.
The Otter app records the entire conversation and transcribes it with a pretty good amount of accuracy. Sometimes it'll get words mixed up, but generally it doesn't.
That's
so that
wonderful.
Allows him to focus on listening instead of taking notes. And then he can go back and do that. And that's because he's working on an Eagle Scout project. And one of the things he's done for Boy Scouts especially is he has to attend meetings. You had to attend a board meeting, and you have to take these notes and you have to document. And that's one of the ways he's done it. He also, because he does have a mild math disability, but he uses his tools actually to help with that, with time management, planning, organization. What do you, I mean,
I set timers for when I have certain things so that I can remember my schedule throughout the day.
money wise?
Amazing.
Money-wise, I write down my money. I actually type it in a Google Doc to make sure I know how much I have. And I divide it into savings and pocket money.
I'm so proud of you. That's amazing. So
So,
let me-
I mean, yeah. So
Let
I'm
me
gonna just
talk
say,
about the atmosphere of the home. We say that when kids with dyslexia learn to read, the home turns from a battlefield to a playground. Is the atmosphere so much better in your home now that you can read?
Yeah, I think it's definitely better. I have an easier time of just life in general, being able to read without major inconvenience.
and when he was reading in kindergarten through third grade, he read like 4 books. There were 4 books he would read, only 4 books, and he had them memorized.
Uh-huh.
Yes, they were all written by Brandon Sanderson.
How many
Yeah,
books,
and-
how many books do you have time to read now, though?
Entire bookshelves, and I read a series called the Spellmonger books. It's a fantasy book series, and each book is about the size of a Lord of the Rings novel.
Whoa. How many are in that series?
Currently 13, I believe.
Sheesh. And you read a lot of those. Well, that might be good for some of the other high schoolers to get some ideas what they could read when they learn to read. So Tyler, what do you want to do so a lot of us change careers. Education's my 3rd career, and then I had a lot of little jobs in between, but what do you think you want to do when you're out of college or even while you're in college?
I'm planning on possibly pursuing psychology,
Yeah.
but also cooking interests me.
Uh-huh.
During college, I'm probably going to get a job in either customer service or fast food.
Okay. To help bring some money in while you're in college.
Mhm.
Well, that sounds really,
Currently, I walk dogs. I walk a lot of dogs, pet sit.
oh, well, that's good. Good way to bring income in when you're in high school. I was a
Mhm.
parking attendant. Can you believe my first job was being a parking attendant, running to get cars late at night when people would have their restaurant parties?
That certainly sounds interesting.
Different, it sure is. Okay, well, we need to wrap this up. So let me ask you, what would your final closing words be to the audience?
Don't be afraid to admit you need help. Ask for it and it'll help you. You'll be able to do better.
Okay, so that's to you high schoolers. I hope parents are pulling their kids in to hear you. And let's let this thing go viral to show you support and let the kids in high school know they don't need to drop out of high school. There's support out there for you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm Dr. Marianne Cintron, and thank you for tuning in. If what we have shared has inspired you, we are a nonprofit organization. Please visit our website at dyslexia-solutions.com and consider making a donation. We appreciate you. Until next week, bye-bye now.